Sam, let's talk about the Game 7 grand final between Dogwithalog and me and the boys. Well, let's talk about the, I guess, grand final in general. Cast your mind back to that grand final. It was a great grand final. Me and the boys, I guess, getting their revenge, I suppose you could say. Because Shallow and Rob lost with Halden to this exact same team of Hammer Saint, Yem, and Colin. But this time they brought in Spectre, and it was a bit of, I mean, it made a small difference, you know, going from a Game 6 loss to a Game 7 win. Big win there for me and the boys, though, and it pretty much almost not guarantees them, but it makes it difficult now for Dogwithalog to catch up due to the results of the fourth Wild Rocket series. What are your thoughts on it? And were you surprised that it went to Game 7? Because there's always like the big talk about, you know, Rob, Kieran, and Shallow and Spectre, excellent players. But whenever like Colin and Yem and Hammerson, they have like a small bit of chemistry or something that gives them that opportunity to take these guys further. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, even in the last podcast, we were saying, you know, that Wild has been proving to us again and again how chemistry and teams playing together is what's winning tournaments, and we even seen that yesterday with Shane's team taking it all. It's consistently playing together, even if it's arguably worst players on it, is clearly getting results, and yeah, it's a pretty big win for them. Essentially, I mean, it's going to be very hard for them to not come second at least in the final rankings for the seeding for the major. So yeah, no, it's and obviously even just the prize money for that event alone and the clout and the bragging rights, it's a big win.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's just me, and I don't know if it's a popular opinion or an unpopular opinion, but I don't think Hammer Saint, out of those like 6 players that I just mentioned, is as on the same level as the rest of them. Now I know he's obviously good friends with the likes of I think Yem in particular. He knows him quite well. But considering those guys are able to take them, do you really believe that chemistry has been proven to be a real, you know, the big, not the selling point, but the kind of, maybe these players are maybe starting to get it into their heads that they really should start sticking together for longer periods of time, because Carbon Zero have consistently been a big threat throughout WRS. Now I know they had a small change yesterday, and you could argue that they brought in a slightly better player in NKS over Linsk, but the fact that, you know, you still have 2 of the same players and they were able to finally get their win, doesn't that say a lot?
It does. I really don't know how I feel about Hammer Saint. Obviously we only seen him in one event, but he did seem noticeably weaker. But even though there was the odd whiff or misplay, it seemed that the boys, and I'm pretty sure he's played with Colin quite, like, I'm not confirmed, but I'm pretty sure they've done some scrims prior to the event as well, like explicitly for a while. And that's not something that you'd see teams like Rob's team do, and me and the boys. Like, that's not something that they do, to my knowledge. And they're consistently, you know, doing worse as a result of that.
Yeah, I am a firm believer of, I guess, sticking together as a team, and I'm glad that, I guess, that you at least see it that way, and I know a couple of others are starting to really understand and grasp this whole team dynamic thing, because it's kind of what WRS is kind of set up to do. And maybe these other players, the Shallows, the Spectres, the Robs, they just think that they're good enough that they can come in and walk it every time, and I mean, it was proven in WRS4 that they just can't do that. Because when they try to, sometimes they just lose. But let's talk about, I guess, the grand final controversy, which was in Game 7. It had been going on throughout, and just, I guess, for a refresher for all those people who are listening, a bit of toxicity coming out between the 2 teams. I guess, unfair to say 2 teams, because Shallow and Spectre weren't involved in it. It was in the entirety of Dogwithalog, so Colin, Yem, Hammer Saint, and Rob Kiernan, basically. Consistently quick chatting each other, etc., which is okay. Quick chatting isn't too bad once it's not like completely continuous. The big issue was they started chatting to each other and started getting fairly toxic, a little bit abusive. And in the end, we decided to make a ruling on it to say, look, that's not on. And we took a very, I think, some people would say harsh stance, but I think we wanted to, I'll tell you, we wanted to make a point of it and say, you know, we're going to clamp down on this now, because if we allow this to happen, people are just going to keep doing it. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we made the right decision? I'm not asking you have to agree with us, but I'm asking you what was your opinion? Do you think it was right? Do you think it was a bit harsh? Because they also lost 25 points. That's taken Dogwithalog out of top place. Like, they really can't get it. It's almost impossible for them to get first. They have to win and hope a lot of things go their way in the next event. And that's a big loss for them, considering they couldn't play in the 4th one.
Was the punishment just the points, or was it the prize pool also?
No, the prize pool they get to keep. We don't want to take the money away from the players, so they got to keep the prize pool. But the penalty was They lost their points, so 25 points for Dogwithalog and 10 points for me and the boys. And all those players got banned from the next event, which meant that Dogwithalog couldn't play and Rob Kieran couldn't play. And we saw how much of an impact that had yesterday. Rob Kieran not being able to play. They couldn't even get top 2, which is, you know, an upset.
It's definitely a harsh stance, but I think it's about time that it's stomped down on, because it's happened 5 or 6 times in the past and it's continued to happen. And I wouldn't expect it to happen again now that this is, especially that the main offenders of this in the past have been, you know, now punished for it. You'd expect them to learn their lesson at this point. And I think it's fair enough that, because it is very clearly like against the rules. There's a document what all of Wild's rules, and I believe one of the key ones is just no toxicity, and admins have the right to make decisions concerning point deductions and what have you in the event of toxicity during a game. So I think it's fair enough. And I think it's a bit overdue, to be honest, which once again might sound harsh, but yeah.
Thank God.